All right, let's be honest. If you'd asked anybody in Oakwood, Kentucky last week if 52-year-old Daniel Rogers was about to become the center of the wildest, most talked about event the town had seen in decades, you'd have gotten a whole lot of not a chance and a couple of polite chuckles. But let me tell you, you ever want to see a grown man outsmart a cocky kid, a room full of doubters, and his own ghosts all at once? Well, buckle up because that's exactly what happened, and I was there to see every oil-stained second of it. You ever get dared to do something so nuts, you almost laugh and suddenly realize you might be just the kind of crazy it takes to pull it off? That was Daniel, walking into Benedetto's garage at sunrise, his old Ford pickup groaning under the weight of one more tuition bill for his daughter Amy. He was carrying 30 years of engine grease on his hands, and 5 years of loss in his chest brace, his wife, taken in a car accident that never made sense. Not even after 1,000 nights picking it apart in his mind. What Daniel didn't know, and hell, what none of us did, was that tragedy had given him a gift. Call his superpower if you want, a memory so sharp he could see every piston, every bolt, every spark plug in his mind like a blueprint. He could rebuild an engine blindfold if only life worked that way. Now, here's where the story starts spinning. Tony Miller, yeah, that Tony, the one who never met a shirt he couldn't spill Red Bull on, or an ego he couldn't inflate, pulls up to the garage in a Camaro loud enough to set off car alarms 3 counties over. Out he pops, all grins and swagger, and behind him, like the crown jewels, a pile of parts from a 1967 Shelby GT 500. He lays down a challenge that'd make any gearhead's heart skip. Rebuild the engine, no manuals, no computers, just pure know-how and guts. Winner takes a pot fattened by every mechanic in the county. Loser walks away, $500 lighter, maybe more, if you count pride. Let me back up a sec because this isn't just about engines. For Daniel, that cash meant Amy's pre-med tuition, groceries, a roof. For Tony, it was just about bragging rights, the chance to knock the old guard off their pedestals. And for Oakwood? Well, Oakwood was hungry for a story, something to shake up the routine, give folks something to gossip about over coffee. You know what I mean? Everyone pretends not to care. But come Saturday, the whole town was buzzing. By sunrise, reporters were crowding in, camera flashes bouncing off greasy wrenches. Daniel looked calm, too calm, maybe. Tony was strutting around like he'd already won. And right then, the real surprise rolled in. Gregory Allen, a collector so wealthy and mysterious that just hearing his name made mechanics sit up straighter. The kind of guy you'd expect to see on the cover of a glossy magazine. Not squeezing into a folding chair at a college garage. Dr. Bennett, Oakwood's no-nonsense engineering prof, ran the show with a clipboard and a poker face, laying down the relentless no help, no shortcuts, just brains and hands and sweat. Daniel took his spot, closed his eyes for just a second, and you could tell was somewhere else. Somewhere with Grace's voice in his ear and every Shelby engine he'd ever seen floating behind his eyelids. It wasn't smooth sailing, not even for a genius. The first hour, you could see Tony's confidence cracking as bolts didn't fit and little mistakes piled up. Rick Caldwell, the hotshot from Louisville, was methodical. Jake Morrison from Shelbyville was double-checking every move, but Daniel, man, he was in his zone. It was like watching somebody write a love letter in a language nobody else could read. He wasn't rushing. He just didn't hesitate. Spectators started to realize what they were seeing. Dr. Bennett kept glancing at Daniel, shaking his head, muttering about once in a generation. Lauren Parker, the reporter, was scribbling notes like her pen was on fire. Amy, bless her, floated through the chaos, quietly explaining to the gawkers that her dad had always been good with engines, but even she was starting to see him in a new light. Right about noon, Tony tried to rattle Daniel, calling out about sealant and proper prep like he was teaching a class. Daniel just kept working, eyes steady, hands never shaking. Some things just stick in your memory better than others, he'd said the night before, and now everybody was getting a taste of what that meant. By mid-afternoon, it was clear Daniel was running away with it. Not just beating the others, but showing a whole new way to think about what expertise even means. People pressed closer, students asking Amy if her dad was a robot, or maybe had some magical sixth sense for machines. She just smiled and shook her head. And then because every good story needs a twist, Gregory Allen stepped forward as Daniel was tightening the last bolts. "I've never seen anything like this in 40 years, he told Dr. Bennett. "This man is the real deal." The crowd quieted. Dr. Bennett started his inspections, running through every test he could think off: compression, oil pressure, torque specs, and Daniel's work passed every check. Not a single error. Not even a loose connection. Tony slunk away without meeting anybody's eyes. Rick and Jake finished hours later, good, but not legendary. The applause when Dr. Bennett gave the all-clear was thunderous. Oakwood hadn't clapped like that since the football team's big win in '87. Neighbors came by with sandwiches, strangers asked for autographs, and Lauren Parker asked Daniel if he'd ever consider teaching. His boss, stood in the corner, half proud, half worried, knowing things were about to change. Because they were. Gregory Allen made his pitch director of technical operations at his restoration facility, 3 times Daniel's current pay, benefits that would pay Amy's way through med school and then some. A chance to build a legacy, not just turn wrenches. Allen even hinted at opening a whole new facility in Oakwood, putting the town on the map for good. Daniel hesitated, loyal to S, not wanting to leave the man who gave him his first shot. But Amy and S both said the same thing. You owe it to yourself. This is your moment. The next morning, Daniel put on his best shirt and tie. Amy's Father's Day present and sat across from Gregory Allen in the Oakwood Inn, nerves jangling. Allen laid out the details, the money, the scholarship, the chance to build something permanent. And for the first time since Grace's accident, Daniel started to believe that maybe, just maybe, tragedy had left him with something worth sharing with the world. He took the job. Amy cried with relief and pride. S grinned and said, "It's about damn time you let the world see what you're made of." And the whole town started whispering about Oakwood's golden boy, the mechanic who rebuilt a legend from memory and changed his family's fate in the process. But here's the thing: Daniel didn't just win a bet or pay a tuition bill. He showed everyone, from the loudest critic to the quietest onlooker, that real talent can come from the most unexpected places. That sometimes pain doesn't just break use, it remakes us. And that when you finally step into the light, you might just find the world ready to applaud. Now, you tell me, is Daniel's win pure luck, or a miracle forged from years of sweat and heartbreak? Is it right for talent like his to be swept away by big money? Or should the heart of a small town always belong to those who made a home? You know what I think? Sometimes, the only way to find out who you really are is to take a chance even when everything's on the line. Let me know where you stand, because if there's ever been a story that'll get folks talking about right, wrong, and what it really means to build something lasting, this is it. Drop your thoughts below, share your own stories of unlikely triumph, and if you want more tales like this, you know where to find me next time.